Today, I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Lisa Zawrotny. And Lisa's business is called Positively Productive Systems. Say that 3 times fast is what I was saying to her. Like, how do I tell me what? And so she has a super cool, she's got a podcast and she also has a business of coaching. She's a coach, she's a business coach for decluttering your life, which boy, who doesn't need that? But Lisa, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Thanks, Amy. I'm great. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because we all need a little more simplicity, a little more decluttering, a little productivity in the way we're going to talk about it today. It's different. I'm not like all the other productivity, right? It's different. And I can't wait to dig into it with you because it fits so beautifully with what you focus on.
Yay! Even if it wasn't, I am sure I would enjoy it because you are not the typical guest. You are Lisa. And so Lisa, tell me about positively productive systems.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to try to give you the best and quickest nutshell, which is basically that, we were talking earlier about how life lifes you, right? And it's trying to be ready for anything. And I went through quite a bit of life with all the capital letters and underlined and exclamation points after it and some weird emojis that you don't, put in mixed company. Like I was a caregiver for my mom. She had Alzheimer's, and this was while I had both my babies. So at one point I had an infant, a toddler, and a mom with Alzheimer's, and I was in absolute utter survival mode. And I look back and it's still really hard to describe because on the one hand, I want to say, look at what came of that. Look at the life lessons and the beauty within. We go through dark times and we come out the other side. There is hope, there is brilliance, there is optimism, but also I want to honor those who go through the hard times, those who are caregivers. It was hard, but it did teach me a lesson in all the stuff that I was trying to do that was just a waste of my time and my sanity. And when I came out of it, thank goodness, I listened to this voice inside my head that said, wait a minute, just hang on. Maybe we don't just go back to how we were trying to do things before. Maybe we stop, we take stock, we clear a path and figure out what's going on. And that's exactly what I did. And I call it now like internal and external decluttering. I got rid of so much stuff that I had thought I needed, but I never touched and never looked at. I even things like on my to-do list, you name it, like paperwork that came in, things that I maybe had signed up for, mail, you name it. There's so much that when you're in survival mode, you're like, don't need to deal with that right now. That is not necessary. And I learned how much was not necessary. And I knew I wanted to help others find that simplicity and that calm, lower the stress, because even when you're not in survival mode, you can step into a simpler life.
That is, I mean, that's so interesting because I'm like to have you here because as I am packing boxes, I'm like, huh, when was the last time I used that? But then, I'm such a sentimental fool that like all these things I feel like I can't be without. And then there's, paperwork and like, my dog passed away 6 years ago and I have all the paperwork for her and like things that I'm not sure that I'm ready to let go of,
Yeah.
but what am I doing with them?
Well, I think sometimes you need to continue to ask yourself that question. But I will say this, and I've coached so many people in decluttering, especially when it comes to sentimental decluttering. And if the answer is, I'm not sure yet, then the answer is keep it. Don't ever force yourself. And especially if you're going through a hard time, if you're going through a big move, then to try to push ahead on principle is actually only going to make things tougher for you. I know that there's an opportunity to move when you're packing up, to move lighter. So yes, you can be aggressive in your thinking of what do I really need? And by all means, keep asking yourself that question. But when it comes to something sentimental and potentially soothing, if the answer is I'm not sure, then it's definitely a keep until you're ready. And there are so many ways that you can go about that. But the question you asked is a really good one. What am I doing with it?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to ask with everything. The reason I talk about like whole life decluttering is you talk about an item that you're looking at. What am I doing with it? But we can look at it the same way, that same question for what we're doing with time on our calendar, or tasks that we think we're supposed to do. It's across the board in our lives. That questioning is key because that's where we're going to find the stuff that's taking up valuable space.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Okay. So maybe just keep asking and
So would it help with where you're going to kind of have a guide or like a few tips with regard to this?
please.
Okay. So as you're packing up, you're asking the question, what am I doing with this? Do I really need this? You're asking all these different questions. You're going to do this for different categories of what you pack. And it is true that there are some things that are far less sentimental. Now we can technically make like everything sentimental. The spatula, it means so much to me. Were you a chef? No. Yes, I'm teasing, but there are areas of our life, maybe like utensils or basic clothing or things like that, that may not attribute the same meaning. You can be more aggressive with those things to make space for what matters. That's like a key phrase or a mantra that I use. It's not decluttering like you're getting rid of stuff. It's not decluttering like you have to lessen what you're doing. Your purpose is to make space for what matters. Make space for what you want to take with you to this new space, to this new life. Carry the baggage with you that makes sense, that you want to bring, not what you didn't think you could leave behind. That's the positive spin. And I'm not talking toxic positivity like everything's sunshine and roses and rainbows and unicorns. I'm talking about I have another chance. Every day we wake up and we're breathing, we have another chance, right? To make new choices and to have new adventures. What do you want to accessorize that life?
Yeah. Dang. That is super valuable. I mean, the advice, but also just what you're doing. So that is okay. And so that is stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but you do, I mean, I assume it's similar-ish for life. Similar-ish.
Yeah, I would say so. So I started as a residential professional organizer and I helped people with stuff, but I realized immediately that our stuff is so deeply linked to our head and our heart. And that's actually how I became a productivity coach. I started as an organizer, and then I thought, well, what are we really trying to do here? We're trying to be productive, to get things done, to live our lives. And what's the whole point of productivity, right? To live a good life, to do things that we love, that we're passionate about, but we're not finding the time to do it. So we're trying to be productive, and we get into these vicious cycles. And I realized that there was such a parallel in that clutter is across the board. And also, because it's so deeply ingrained in our heads and our hearts, because things like grief and trauma affect us so deeply in how we, choose what we're going to keep in our lives, right? Sometimes we do that. Clutter can be a protector for us, right? It can be a barrier to life that we don't want to go outside and live because we're so weary, so it's understanding. And it can be mental. It can be the stories we tell ourselves. It can be the thoughts that we have. It can be the never-ending to-do lists that run in our brains because we don't have a proper system or we're just taking on too much. There's so many reasons. These are all the things that I unpack with clients because they're all connected.
True story. I mean, as you're talking about that, I'm thinking of how I always think a cluttered house is a cluttered mind.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's like reversed, like because we're unable to let go of things in our minds that we can't focus on letting go of things.
I think that's a great question. And I think it's sort of one of those, yes, or one of the favorite sayings that my family has is, why can't it be both? I kind of feel like there is a both, and here's why. So I now say that the mental and physical clutter, your mental and physical environments affect and reflect each other.
Mm.
So to that point, I felt like if I got to the head and the heart first, it would help take care of the physical clutter. And I have seen this happen, and here's why. Because when you understand what you've gone through, the impact of, the trauma that you've had, the choices that you make, ideas about your, how you want to live your life, and a better understanding of your core values, pure self-awareness as to the kind of personality you are and the tendencies you have. All of these things I go through with my clients, and it's like, wait, Lisa, productivity, we not getting to use a planner at some point? Yes, we are. But when you get clear on all those other things first, you create what I call filters for your life. Just like when you're decluttering and you're like, I have a kitchen. So what are we doing in here? We're cooking, we're eating. A bowling ball? Wait, first of all, nobody bowls in the house. Why do we even have this? Second of all, it doesn't belong in the kitchen. Sounds so obvious. But then when we have, things that
Why
we
is there a
value.
bowling ball in the kitchen?
Right. Well, it's that we have things that we value in our life, and yet we're not making room for that in in the space of our life. It's that same kind of question, but now we're applying it across the board. And so it's when you create filters by understanding your values and how you work best, your circadian rhythm, the fact that I will never be a morning person. Yes, you heard it here first. I am technically an expert in productivity, and I'm not a morning person. It is possible. It's like, it can happen. Oh my gosh, I'm an anomaly. No, it's understanding how you work best and then showing up that way. It sounds simple when I say it. I know it's not simple. I know it bucks the trends. But when we understand these things, we have these filters that then we go, oh, okay, now I know that, oh, that belongs, but this doesn't. We start to have that filter. I can think of so many times when I've wanted to do something, to achieve something, to create a habit. And it wasn't that I couldn't do it, I didn't have the motivation or the determination, that I was lazy, all the stories we tell ourselves about it. It was that it was in direct conflict with something else that I valued more.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things we need to discover about ourselves. And when we do, now it's like, oh, yeah, I've got my filters. I know what belongs and what doesn't in my life. I know, now we know what to say yes and no to, which can be challenging. Then we start talking about boundaries. Well, yes and no, because this is what I believe in. This is what I want. Sustainability is a great example. You can choose where you are making purchases based on that being a deep value of yours. So maybe you need to drive further to do that. So therefore, you schedule your day differently. Therefore, you say no to an extra meeting. It's like you kind of back from what's really important in your life and then make all of those other choices. That's how I approach productivity.
Oh, wow. So that it's almost like it sounds to me like it's very much like a figure out what matters, and
Yeah.
then everything else falls into place. Or it
Yeah.
falls away.
Well, yes. Oh, that's a great way to put it, Amy. It's like it falls into place or it falls away because you realize it didn't belong. And that's not a bad thing. And sometimes it can be related to a season in your life too. But if we keep going with like the hustle culture of just go, go, go and keep doing, and are you productive because you're acting, where's the time to step back and reflect? Am I the same person that I was? Do I still want the same things? Uh, am I doing the things that align with what I say that I believe in and that I want? They say, excuse me, if you want to know what I value, take a look at my calendar and my checkbook. I mean, who has a checkbook anymore? But you don't know what I'm saying. Take a look at where you're spending your time and your money, and it will say what you are placing value in. And so it's either a chance to say, yep, that's working, or, oh, hello, I have some changes to
Right.
make.
Okay. I get that. That's cool. That totally works. And how do
It,
you,
it, it feels different, right?
it, it sounds simple. And
You
I'm sure that
know,
it's not, but once you've discovered that, like, the core values, and it's interesting to think that people don't necessarily have those or know them.
know them. That, yes, I think the most challenging part to this is going against what we're conditioned in society, which is what it means to be productive, which is so often conflated with being busy. It is the idea that you have certain things that you believe in, you're going to stand for them, and that's how you're going to choose what you're going to do. What do you mean you're not going to be busy all day and constantly going? What do you mean you're going to take breaks? And what do you mean you're going to choose to do something differently than the norm? That's the challenging part.
Mm.
Also, what can be the challenging part is we're so conditioned to think work hard is the value. And do not get me wrong, it's not like I don't work hard, but it is sort of in that direction that you've probably heard of, the working smarter. It's working in a way that makes sense for you, feels so much easier, that sometimes it feels like a cheat code of life. And you're like, whoa, is it supposed to be? And then you start second guessing yourself. It's almost like that's where self-sabotage can come in, because like, no, it couldn't possibly be this straightforward. I
Right.
mean, there's still effort that needs to be involved, but when you get to do things the way that you love to do, which, by the way, I mean, that's the principles of positive psychology, which is why I called my business Positively Productive. That's the positivity. It's positive psychology, which shows us that when we lead with our strengths and when we do things that we're passionate about, we live a more satisfied life. The irony here is that while we have been pushing and pushing, and the grind, right? Hustle and grind, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound at all appealing. While we've been doing that, we've had this other solution that feels so much better, that turns out to be so productive.
Yeah.
Doing what you love, doing what you're passionate about, puts you in a flow state, which is literally the most productive state you can be in. It's optimal productivity. Doing what you love and what you're passionate about, doing things in a way that fit you and your personality, that authenticity and alignment means that you are more likely to show up. that it feels better to you, which means you're more likely to do it again. And all of these, like, when you have like a positive feedback loop like that, that does something for one of the key foundations of productivity called habit building.
Mm.
Every time you're in a situation where you are going to show up and you're going to do the thing and you're going to do it again and again and again, your podcast, you're coming up on 100 episodes as we record this. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Wow. I was
So, right?
6 was a big one.
And so what brings you to do that? You show up regularly. You find guests that you want to talk to, presumably. You it means something to you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And does it feel like have you had like an inclination or I don't know, have you just appreciated having really good conversations with people?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it drew you to that. That's why we were joking about this before, but I thought I was going to write a book. And instead, I started a podcast. But it's because it's not that I won't eventually write one. I'm actually a pretty decent writer, but I love these conversations. It lights me up.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of thing you keep showing up for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, why would you want to stop that? It's like it's feeding you.
Exactly. It's energy giving. And that's to me where the connection is. And I actually use the word sustainable in my descriptions for what I do. I call what I do compassionate productivity and sustainable productivity.
Hmm. Okay.
And it's okay. I have your attention.
Yeah. So since you said that, what can you like differentiate or define, I guess?
Yeah, I'd be happy
Compassionate,
to.
compassionate productivity. What?
Yeah, and this is a fairly new term. It has been used in like corporate leadership. And essentially, the compassionate part is putting the person first. And the sustainable is, in fact, what, you know, you talk about here. Now, I was thinking about how we apply sustainability to what we do, or maybe as entrepreneurs or in the workforce. So it's the idea of just like sustainability in general, but very specifically, it would be the idea of the ability to maintain or support a process continuously over time. Sounds a lot like a habit, right? The way in which you set up a system so that you show up and you do that habit repeatedly.
Okay.
And then sustainability also talks about like dealing with your natural resources. Well, we as humans have finite resources. So the way that I look at this is we have to understand what's truly needed. We have to use our resources wisely, which is, I talk a lot about energy management as opposed to time management. Yes, we're managing time, but how do you manage time? By, you know, making sure that you have the proper energy to do the thing. Because you could have all the time in the world, but if whatever it is you're trying to do goes against your values or feels like a slog or is not clear in what you need to do, you know, any of those things, any of those conflicts will keep you from doing it no matter how much time you have.
Right, right.
And if you don't show up with energy, you know, if you're really tired, if you're not properly caring for you, mentally, emotionally, physically, you may get through it, but you probably get through it with a ton of mistakes and it'll just be horrid. So energy management is key. And then, yeah, and then just setting yourself up for repeatability. The idea, and this is habits, you know, this is habits 101, that you want the smallest step possible that allows you to show up again and keep doing it, and then show up again and keep doing it. And it reminds me a little bit of, in medicine, something called the minimum effective dose, where it's like that's just enough to get the effect that you're looking for.
Mm.
And you don't want to, obviously, you don't want to overdose, but you also don't want to have a higher dose that is going to be a waste because it's not going to give you more effect. And I feel like we do that in life all the time. We don't praise the good enough. We want to do more because, again, we are taught that you show up and you work hard and you give 100%, you give it all you got. And it's like, well, how about we give it just enough and we get her done, and then we use what's left for other amazing things in our life. How about that?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, I mean, good enough, it feels weird. Good enough
Yes.
feels weird, but that's because we're conditioned for that. Um,
Yep. Exactly.
but like, yeah, I mean, you finish something that you feel really great about, and then you're like, okay, so now I have to top that. And then,
That's true. Setting a precedent can also make it really difficult, but yeah, again, so much is about what we're conditioned because, and sometimes, I've taught my kids this too. Sometimes there are certain things that we do want to leave it all on the table, that we do want to give it our all. And that usually goes along with something that we're extremely passionate about. But then there are other times where we're just like, phone that puppy in, okay? Just do your best, get her done, get out. We just got to be okay with that. And I think having that sliding scale and appreciating that, and that it's like sometimes, some days you celebrate just getting by, and that's a good thing.
yeah. Oh my gosh. This is like, it's the way that you're saying it, Lisa, it makes it sound like not so scary. And maybe it's
Good.
because you sound really nice. But uh, but it just, it's like, I think it really, the hardest part is just going against what we have learned. And so it's like unlearning, as my friend
Yes.
Marianne always says, or unlearning these things that are push us harder than we need to.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I am here to encourage you. I do want you to listen to this and walk away and go, I have some ideas. Yes, I'm going to make some changes. It can be scary, and people they can balk at it. They can, you may have a family who's like, whoa, 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 what's this?
Oh, we want all
And
that.
that's right. It's like, that's where, you know, being confident in this, that's where the coaching comes in, where I'm like, I'm doing this with you. We're walking side by side. And it's like, you got this. You figured this out. You believe in this. Now you have to hold your own making these changes, because there are going to be some people who are going to disagree, and you have to be like, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. But yes, those parts can be scary. Simple, as you know, doesn't always mean easy, but as long as it fits and it's rewarding, then it's worth taking those steps. And there are small steps you can take. I mean, sometimes it can be in a very basic productivity kind of fashion, something as simple as saying, I'm going to make most of my appointments appear longer on my calendar to give myself buffer
Mm,
so that I can take a break. Or, I mean, I actually prefer to say, put in little mini meetings for yourself.
mm.
Uh, right?
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Right. So that's classic in terms of, creating buffer time, but now we understand the reason why. We understand that we're modeling for the next generation that we don't have to burn ourselves out to do good things in this world. We are modeling for others. I love showing up and being able to say, it's okay if we start a few minutes late. I've had people scramble to tell me, oh my gosh, I'm sorry I'm running late. And I'm like, how about we meet in 15 instead? Take a moment, take time, get something to drink, go to the bathroom, get a snack, take a moment, and then we'll show up. And it's worth that time, because now it's energy giving. Now you're not showing up frantic, right? We took a deep breath before we started this, and what a difference that made. And that was what, seconds?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much.
And
Yeah.
and I feel, yeah, right? It's little things like that can make such a big difference, but we need to believe in them, speak up about them. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this conversation to spread this word even more, because the more we all agree that this makes sense, the easier it's going to be for us to keep taking these steps.
Wow. You must have so much patience because I mean I know the whole thing with your mom and your kids and whatever, but then like people they fight it so hard. I am people. Um like I mean, like I said, it sounds so simple because it's really just figuring out what matters to you.
Yeah.
Sound hard, right? But then it's like fighting yourself for um to let go of things that we're cluttering our life with
Yep.
and are so afraid to let go.
I mean, it's true. And so it's all of these things that happen. It's fear. Oh, what will it mean if, or what will people think if, or, what does that mean for me? That's, again, it's why coaching, because we have to unpack a lot. Sometimes it's your identity. Well, if I'm not doing all these things, who am I? And so one of the first things we have to unlearn is that your actions in this, traditional productivity realm equal your value.
Mhm.
You right here, right now, are worthy and valuable. But that is a hard thing to allow and to accept and to believe and to act upon. And so it takes time.
Dude, I almost started crying. Um yes, absolutely. But I mean, so patience. I mean, to deal with people like that, because seriously, that would be me. That will be me. I know I
Yeah.
can do this, and it makes me sad to let go of things. Like I'm such
Yeah.
a thing person. Um,
Well, but the more that you heal, and see, that's the thing, is that a lot of times, again, traditional productivity is the doing, and my, approach with sustainable and compassionate productivity is that we kind of have a parallel path of healing and getting ish done. Because we still have life and we still have responsibilities and we still have dreams and things like that. So it's like when you injure yourself, and you have to recover, and you're not going to be like, well, I'm gonna run that marathon anyhow. No, you have to heal first. But what I find is that I can kind of help a parallel path of, sometimes it's alternating depending upon the session that we have. We go back and forth between, okay, so what's blocking you? As soon as it's like, all right, let's try this technique or let's try this thing, and then I can feel immediately that you're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, I feel resistance, let's unpack that. So patience, yes, but for me, it's so rewarding. I'll stay here as long as I need to help you get to where you need to be. And the great thing is that every little step that you make that proves that this is working and it's real and it can be done encourages you to take that other step. And then we just keep working together, and it's like, oh, yes. And that momentum is built. So
yeah,
it's different if you have patience for someone who's like, you're wrong, it's not happening, and I'm like, well, then I'm not your coach.
right.
But if it's for someone who's like, this is just so foreign and I'm scared, I have all the patience all the time, because I know that sometimes you just need someone who's got your back and is there for you, holding space. It's one of the most, like, I'm so honored to be able to do that for people and kind of completely shift their way of thinking,
Right.
that such that they can just, it sounds so cliche to live a better life, but really just be more of themselves in their life, and that makes you shine brighter. You have gifts that you bring to this world that you sometimes forget that you have, especially when you don't get to tend to them. And this is making space for what matters. And as I often say, it's part of what matters is you.
Hmm. Oh, Lisa. And I would guess, uh, just from this conversation that you would be a party thrower. Like every victory, you're like, look at that. Look at
Woo!
that.
Yes. Yes.
And that is, so then that final outcome, or as there's progress, people would feel that, from you, but then, you would just like, do you see what you just did? Do you see what you just did? Can you feel that difference?
Yeah.
And ooh, that's powerful.
And it's important because oh my gosh, I am the productivity coach who's like, did you just do something and it wasn't on your list? Go ahead and add it on your list and then check it off. Got it. Right? I do that. Yes, you're right. Every small win, every victory, acknowledge it and celebrate it. And part of that's like practicing gratitude for what you've achieved. Um, I did do an episode about this where you have to celebrate and savor your success. And pardon me, it does drive you forward. It does help.
With the momentum.
Yes, exactly. That you want to make the next step because you're like, look at me. Hello. And yeah, exactly. Got to do a dance. Woo. Get the funk in there. Woo. Yeah. All right. And yes, I will do ridiculous dances.
I believe that.
Yeah, you're right. You called it.
uh my goodness, this is fascinating. Like I'm learning all these things. This podcast is like bringing all these things that I had never even considered. I did not know that life decluttering was a thing. Obviously it's necessary. But now that it's going down. Now that I'm hearing about it, like all these things, I'm like, I need that. I need that. Oh my gosh, I need that. I just talked to someone the other day. I'm like, I need a weight loss coach. I need, I need journaling, food journaling. I need that. Um, it's crazy to me. And I'm like, I am everyone's best customer because I see the need for all of it. But I love that so much. I mean, it's such a gift. That is such a gift because we all like, I mean, we all are just on autopilot. And because we're so busy, we don't even realize the things that we're just collecting or just like letting collect dust or whatever in our minds, in our lives, like in our homes and stuff like that. And so, but then just to think, I mean, listening to you talk about making yourself that priority and the freedom that you would feel from having less uh whatever it is, like responsibility or things or whatever, like just to have that like air, it's like extra air almost, like you have space for breathing and living and stuff like that and being who you want to be. And that's, gosh, that's so beautiful.
It delights me that you say that because my business mantra is do less, live more, breathe easier.
Heck yeah.
And you're right, we do need that. Everyone take a deep breath right now if you're listening. Just
Right.
inhale and exhale. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, it is. um so Lisa, um tell us how we can find you.
Okay, we'll start with that. Positivelyproductive.com is my website, and that's the hub that will send you off to Positively Living, tell you a bit about me. You can find all kinds of links there. And Positively Living is my podcast. You're listening to an awesome podcast here, so you can just pop on over and hang out with me there. I'd be honored. And if you want to just be ridiculous, if you want to have those parties and silliness and laughter, which I call stress management, then by all means, if you hang out on Instagram, come hang out with me and we will have some really good laughs. I'm at positively_Lisa. I do ridiculous reels and post just general updates and basically inspiration and encouragement, because that's my entire mission, is to spread a message of hope and encouragement and laughter. Life is serious enough for us. Let's enjoy the ride.
100%. Oh my gosh. Woo. That's and so basically everything is available on your website. And
Mhm.
put everything in the show notes as well. And definitely, folks, I think that the Positively Living podcast sounds fabulous.
Thank you.
And also the Instagram, because I don't know, as much as I love cat videos and cute things, I think I can use more. I think we can use more, no matter how many we're listening to or watching. But so last question that I have, Lisa, if
Mhm.
what does the word sustainability mean to you?
I talked about it before in terms of like the wise use of resources, but I guess ultimately, just instinctively, my response is the ability to be able to show up for those you love, for your life, and for yourself over and over again.
Dude, that's awesome. And how much better would it be if we had Lisa in our world? But now you do, because you listen and here
Yay!
you are. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. And you have a beautiful voice.
Thank you. Why, thank you. I make myself laugh. I'm hysterical.
Just so
No,
easy. It's so easy to listen to. Um,
thank you.
so anyway, thank you so much. And yeah, everyone go listen, go watch, go check her out.
Thank you, Amy.